Hi, my name is Tobin Nichols, and today we're here again at Remainders Creative Reuse in Pasadena. And today we're going to have a workshop on making a fabric soft sculpture. You might wonder what a soft sculpture is. Well, it's a different way that fabrics can be sewn together and used other than just sewing. We're going to use some different techniques. And we're going to show some examples of the artist that we're using as inspiration today. His name is Nick Cave, and we're going to show a few examples about him now. Nick Cave was born February 4th, 1959 in Fulton, Missouri. He is an American fabric sculptor, dancer, and performing artist. His family was large in size and always supportive of his artistic interests. And he claims his upbringing gave him an artistic attentiveness to found objects and assemblages. Cave started his artistic journey by manipulating fabrics from older siblings' hand-me-downs. After he graduated Hickman High School in 1977, he enrolled in the Kansas City Art Institute, where he finished a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in 1982. He's best known for his sound suits, which you can see in these examples we're showing now. They are wearable fabric sculptures that are bright, whimsical, and otherworldly. He also trained as a dancer with Alvin Ailey. His later sculptures focused on color theory, mixed media, and large-scale installations. He currently resides in Chicago, Illinois, and is director of the graduate fashion program at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. He still continues his work on the sound suits, as well as works completed as a sculptor, dancer, and performing artist. The sound suits that you see in the examples on screen, in particular, are sculptural costumes that will inspire the work we're going to do today in the workshop that we're working with. They envelop the wearer's body in materials including, but not limited to, dyed human hair, sisal, plastic buttons, beads, wire, sequins, and feathers. They camouflage the body and mask and create a second skin that conceals race, gender, and class, forcing the viewer to look without judgment. In using everyday objects, Cave can create an atmosphere of familiarity while rearranging the objects into interpretive representations of both social and material culture, as race, identity, and gender are generally accepted to form the axis of his work. Cave's sound suits can telegraph many concepts simultaneously. Their meaning can therefore change based on the environment, movement, fixed state, and the inclusion of group choreography. So that's a little bit about Nick Cave, and you can see his sound suits are really colorful, really interesting, a lot of different patterns and colors mixed together. And a lot of really interesting sort of angles and things like that. So that's what we're going for today. And Nick Cave himself, as an artist of color, someone who is still currently working and had a very wonderful career so far, is an example of the workshops spotlighting invaluable yet underrepresented sometimes contributions of women and BIPOC artists for the 20th and 21st century. That's what our workshops seek to do, is to inspire others through the work of these interesting and invaluable artists that have been maybe underrepresented in many ways. Though I would argue Nick Cave is maybe not underrepresented. He's pretty popular and you've probably heard of him before, but he's one of my favorite artists, so it seemed really important to do a project based around his work because I admire him so much. So that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to use his work as inspiration to create something sort of in his style, something similar, probably something a little less crazy, a little less exuberant, because it's something that you'll be either having in your home or maybe wearing or hanging on the wall. And that's the big difference, is that what we're going to do today is less about performance and more about sort of doing something fun and interesting and learning a little bit about the artist and how he works. So with that in mind, I want to show you our example today, which is this little lady here. What I did as inspiration to bring in Nick Cave's work was I thought, well, doing this project, we'll first start with a base. So the base I decided to start with was a sweater, an old sweater. I found these old sweaters at a thrift store, which was great. You might have old sweaters at home yourself that you can use, but you can also just use anything. This can be something that's worn on the body. It can be something that hangs on the wall. It can be something that's on a pillow, that's on your couch. There are a lot of different ways that this can become something that you might use or want to have around and look at. You don't necessarily have to make a costume, which is sort of what this is and what Nick Cave's work is. You can make whatever you want with it. I think a lot of times a wall hanging would be really cool to make in this way using fabric, almost like a hanging quilt, or, like I said, putting it on a pillow would be really cool. Even maybe putting it onto some sort of blanket or something, even just sort of like a tapestry that hangs on the wall. You can use this technique to do that. But for our examples today, we're going to use these sweaters because I thought they really embodied the way Nick Cave makes his work. And I think it's really interesting. So what we see here, similar to Nick Cave's similar to Nick Cave's sound suits, we see that with the sweater, I found a really colorful, really cool sweater that I thought was a great thing to use as a base. And then I chose fabrics that were also different colored and interesting, and they crossed a spectrum of color and texture so that combined together, it would be something really interesting to look at that had depth and variation and compositional elements that are interesting while not being, sort of too much. So I seek to incorporate things that are diametrically opposing textures and colors and making them into a whole that is something interesting to look at. So again, in the way, I don't know if you can see, in the way that Nick Cave's sound suits are sort of textured and have different shapes and angles, I wanted to also make this have different shapes. So I've used some polyfill to sort of make some bumps in it. There's one on the back even, that's a sort of a bump. And to make it really interesting to look at and something that's kind of fun to have around. So again, you could put it on a mannequin in your house if you use a piece of clothing. You can hang it on the wall, anything like that. But for this example, I wanted to use something that was actually wearable because Nick Cave's sound suits are wearable. So that seemed interesting to me. So giving you a little bit better look at this, you can see I also brought this pom-pom in because I thought it was really cool. And it's not actually attached to the sweater, but it could be, and it would be really cool to do. So yeah, I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different kinds of fabric in about 12 or 13 different shapes to make it really interesting on the sweater. And I thought that was cool because the sweater is striped and very sort of up and down, or across stripes, that to make things that were different angles and things was really something that would be interesting to do. So let's go ahead and talk about what we need. So like I said, I have another sweater that we'll use for the example today. I got another one that's also really colorful and cool. You're gonna need that, or a piece of canvas that you have, or a pillowcase, or something, a piece of tapestry that you already have would work as well. Anything that you could use as a base to build on, you'll need. You'll also need a trusty pair of scissors to cut the fabric, your handy dandy glue gun, which is always helpful in these situations. I used pins, which I would also recommend, some pins to sort of pin things down to it so you can pin it in place and then glue around it. And to make the bumps, I used our old friend polyfill, which we have lots of here at Remainders. In the kit that you get will be several pieces of fabric that you can use to do the collaging. If you want polyfill, when you purchase the class, that's something that you can request, or if there's a specific set of colors you'd like, you can request that. And if you need a glue gun, we also have lots of glue guns for sale, but I imagine that most of you probably have several glue guns. I know I do at home. So those are the things you're going to need. And I think having a mannequin form is helpful. You could do it without. You can certainly do it by laying it in front of you and doing it, but I found it a little bit easier because I'm using a sweater to use a mannequin form. So let's start off. Oh, and I also have a really great stick that I use to tamp down the hot glue so that I don't burn myself. This is, I think, an essential thing to have when you are using hot glue. All right, a week from the day that this class is shown, we will have a Zoom class that's live where you can bring any questions you have about it. We hope you'll bring the things you've made so we can see it and you'll share it with the other people that took the class with you. And if you stumble along the way, or if I'm going too fast, or in any way you don't understand what we're doing, that's a great time to ask questions and help get it all figured out and help keep your creativity flowing, because that's what this is all about, is expressing yourself creatively and keeping that creativity flowing. So we don't want anything that might frustrate you or make it difficult to enjoy yourself while you're making these really great projects that we've put together. So now I've got my mannequin. She's all ready. She's ready for more. I'm gonna fold this up a little bit and put it over here so you can get a better look at it. That way you can see it. And then let's go through some of the fabrics that I've chosen. Like I said, we will supply fabrics for you. If there's something specific that you want, colors you don't like, or things that you do, be sure to tell us that when you're purchasing the class. And you can do that on our website, or you can do that by calling the store, and we will set you up with your class, or as many classes as you want to take. And be sure at those times to make note of what you'd like or what you don't like. So for instance, here's a really cool piece of tapestry that I found that I thought was perfect because it's got sort of cherries and some leaves, and it's just a really classic piece of tapestry that you would think of when you think of wall hangings and tapestry, and I thought that would be great as a textural item. I found this really great little piece of star, what do you call this? It's tie-dyed stars on a piece of fabric. I found this great sort of like striped heavy pile fabric that I thought would be really great. And you can see I've used that here on the example. And I've got some really cool and like this polka dotted one I thought was really great. This I love, I think is amazing. A lot of blues I found. So when I was digging through, I noticed I kept being drawn towards blue. And so I tried to find other things that weren't necessarily blue to contrast it with, like this yellow piece with flowers, which I thought was really great for it, and kind of, and another thing is that, you know, it doesn't have to match, not like when you're wearing clothing that you want to match. You should definitely focus on combining textures, combining colors, things that you wouldn't normally do, and throwing off the pattern a little bit so that it's something a bit more interesting. This is art we're making. It's not fashion, it's art. So it can be a lot of things, and it definitely doesn't have to match in any way. Though it's nice that the color palettes blend in some way and complement each other. Here's another really great piece that I found. This side is like this, which is cool. And then the other side, you can see I've already cut some off. The other side's like that. And so the other piece I found was this really cool checkerboard, which I thought was kind of nice. And also interesting juxtaposed against the stripes of the sweater. I thought that'd be really cool. And I agree with it in this instance as well. Even though this sweater is a little bit different than the one I use as an example, these fabrics still go with it because they have the same color palette. And I think that it will still be really, really interesting. So the thing that we keep in mind when looking at Nick Cave's work is that he uses a lot of different shapes to sort of disguise the body. That's something that he talks about in his work, is disguising the body, disguising what race someone is, and that sort of thing. So those same sorts of elements we can use here, where a sweater is sort of, especially on our model form, a sweater has the sort of usual shape that we would expect it to when it hugs the body. But we can use our polyfill and our fabrics to change the way something looks and the shape of it, and make it more interesting than it was before. So while I think this is a really interesting sweater, I like the colors of it, I think we can make it a bit more interesting and a bit more artistic by adding a few things to it. So the first thing we need to do to get it started is to decide what you want your first shape to be and where you want it to be. So the first shape I made on here was with this fabric. This was the very first one. It was sort of the jumping off place. So I think we can use that again as a jumping off place. So I used circles on this one because of the stripes. So I think on this one, I'm actually going to use more squares and triangles rather than circles and see how that goes. Just for some way to sort of change it up a little bit. So I'm going to start by cutting out a big triangle out of this fabric. See, like that, a big triangle. And then I'm going to decide where to put it on here, where I would like it to be on the mannequin, on my piece of art. So what if it was like sort of right here in the middle? I'm going to pin that down a little bit. And if you've got pins, I think it's a good way to use it. Even if you're working flat, it's not a bad idea to use pins just to keep things in place before you glue them. It just makes things a little bit easier. So there, I've got sort of 3 pins. I better put one more. I better put one more. Going in there very well. There we go. So I've left this side open because I'm going to put a little bit of the polyfill in there to give it a little bit of a bump. Even though I really like the way this line looks, I think that looks cool. Actually, yeah, I think I'm not going to do that because I love the way this looks as it is. It makes a really interesting shape right through the middle of there. So I'm actually going to adjust it just a little bit and make it a little bit more interesting, I think. Let's see. Don't fall over. Yeah, I'm going to push this up right to the edge, and I'm going to change the angle just a little bit. And it's kind of sticking down there on its own, so I may not need to tape it, or glue it, sorry, pin it. But I'm going to start gluing it now. And see, I can run that glue right along the edge. You can even run the glue along the edge of the fabric you've cut as opposed to your base, because that will actually be a little bit more specific in putting it down. So you see, I just took the glue right along the edge. Oh, I should have used my stick to tamp it down. I've got my stick that I'm just sort of rolling along that to get it in place, and you see that I've already glued that part. That part is glued down. So let me go ahead and glue this long piece now. And keep in mind, again, it doesn't have to be precise in any way. It can be free flow, flowing out of your mind, really easy. Nothing stressful about it. Nothing has to be difficult about it. This is you expressing yourself and expressing your own creativity, inspired by the work of Nick Cave. So none of it has to be perfect. No one's judging you on it. We're here to make art and to enjoy doing it. So that's what you've got to keep in mind. So see, I've been able to go along there, and that's actually looking really cool. I love how straight that is because this pattern is so squiggly and interesting. I like seeing something really straight going across it and sort of cutting through it. So I've got to finish this side. You see, I'm just going along the edge of the fabric itself with the glue gun, gluing it into place. And then just rolling my stick over it to get it down and flat. Now this is going to become more difficult when we start putting polyfill in it and making bumps. But until then, let's just enjoy how easy it is right now before it gets difficult. Kind of like life itself. Anything you can do to enjoy life and make it easier on yourself, you should do. All right, so we've got that glued down a little bit. Let me just fold it down on there with my stick. This stick is really working well today. All right, and then I've got to finish this little bit on the side. So see, I glued just inside, and now I'm using the stick to push it down against there and just make it nice and flat. So see, we've got our first piece Already glued on. This is a really simple process. It's not difficult. It shouldn't be anything that requires a lot of work or a lot of learning of anything. You're literally just gluing strips of fabric down that you have cut out in shapes that you enjoy and in ways that you think are interesting. That's really all there is to it. It's not difficult, and it shouldn't be difficult. And if you feel like you're overworking it or you're overthinking it, take a break. Take a break, step outside, get some air, have some tea, anything that will make you sort of adjust your frame of reference, because this is a way to really enjoy ourselves, and it's not anything that you have to overthink or think really hard about or get frustrated about. And again, we'll have the Zoom class the week after this airs so that you can join us and ask questions and help figure out things that you didn't understand and compare what you've done with others and show off what you've done. And of course, we want to see what you're doing because I think it'll be really cool. And again, as I stated, Nick Cave is one of my favorite artists, so I'm excited to see what you make that's inspired by his work and by this project. So, all right, so next, I think now that we've got that on there and it's glued down on all sides, you see I can't get it off, it's glued on there. I think that looks really cool. It kind of looks a little bit 80s fashion, which I love. As a child of the 80s, I think that's really cool. So now I need to decide what's gonna go next and what shape it's gonna be and where. So I'm gonna try to avoid doing what I did before and try to switch it up. So I'm gonna go with a square, and I'm gonna choose this fabric to go with it because I think that'll look cool over the top of it, and it also goes well with this. So I'm gonna cut it into a square. I'm gonna use my arm to hold it down so that I can cut it into a square. And then I'm gonna decide where I want it to go. Where should it go? Where would it look cool? Like here or here? Maybe like, I don't know. Where would it be cool? It might be cool like that. Oh, I do, I love that. Okay, cool. So now I know that, I don't know, do I want that? I love this shape right here though. So maybe it should go over here. Yeah, I like it better over here. I think that looks sort of cooler. So I am gonna pin it down this time because I'm gonna use some of the polyfill to make it a little puffy. So I wanna just pin it in place so that it doesn't go anywhere while I'm trying to fill it. And then we'll get this going. If you're having trouble following along, like I said, we've got the Zoom class that takes place the week after where you can come and ask questions and get anything you're not sure about figured out, because we want you to enjoy making this project, and I hope that it will inspire you to make other things. That's really the goal, is a lifetime of learning and enjoying yourself while doing it. So I've got this sort of part open. I think I'm gonna pin down one more section and then that should be good. I'm gonna pin down this corner so that it stays in place. So now you see I've pinned 3 sides, or 2 sides, I guess. I've pinned 2 sides, and so I have this side open. So I'm gonna grab just a little bit of my polyfill and I'm gonna stuff it up in there just to give it a little bit of bulk, a little bit of heft, a little bit of interest. Oh, you see the side came off, which is okay. That's totally fine. I think that means maybe I have too much polyfill. There we go. There we go. That's cool. All right. I'm going to pin that back down. Cool. And I'm going to pin the other sides too. Now that I have this little bump made, I'm going to pull it down so that it fits and pin it. All right, now see, once I've got that pinned on, you can see like it just makes a slight bump. It just makes a little bit of a different shape that contrasts the regular shape that we've been used to seeing. And now I'm gonna go around, just like I did with the other one, and I'm gonna glue this shape down. And because I've got it pinned, that's actually gonna be helpful, I think. I hope it will be helpful to keep it in place a little bit. So I'm just gonna go, again, I'm gonna sort of go underneath. Since I'm not really able to pull it back that much, I'm just gonna kind of go underneath and follow along and pin it down. And again, using my stick, I'm gonna roll it up there, flatten it out, just sort of put that in place and let it dry. And then I'm gonna keep going. So next I wanna do this side. So I'm gonna just go along here on the inside. Ooh. Oops, my stick, there it is. Get my stick, I can take this out now. Take the pin out. And you see I'm just sort of rolling it over where I glued to glue it into place. Even up here, it needs a little bit of extra rolling. So you see, so far we've glued this whole side into place. So we've got the 3 other sides to go. Because it's on the mannequin, one of the hard parts of this corner might be gluing up under there, but I'm gonna give it a try and see if I can get it done. I hope you can see what I'm doing. If not, like I said, you can bring any questions you have about it to the Zoom class so we can help you figure out what to do and to make your project look cool and really interesting. So yeah, there we go, that's good. Some of the glue has actually come out the side and is sticking out, but that's okay, we'll let it dry. And we'll come back to it and work that a little bit more. Again, so we'll just go down the line here. There, so see now I have 2 sides glued down. So I just have 2 sides to go. Everybody doing okay out there? You getting what we're doing? I think it's really interesting and fun. I think it's exciting because I really admire the work of Nick Cave. I think he's a cool dude. So I'm excited to do a project that sort of is inspired by his work, which actually inspires me a lot. So again, we've got that side glued. Now, so you can see here's our first section where we've had to sort of like fold something over a little bit because, you know, the shape of the mannequin is not quite something that accommodates a square shape with polyfill up inside it. So we have to make a little adjustment, which is fine. It just looks like a little bit of a dart. And I don't think it detracts from the design at all. I think it actually makes it look even cooler. So here we go. I'm gonna do the last side. And let's see if I can get it up under there. Yeah. Just using a little bit of glue, not a lot of glue, just using a little bit. You're just gluing down fabric. So it shouldn't really take a lot of glue, a ton of glue. You can be as spare as you'd like to be with it. Because glue, hot glue especially, will sort of like, because it's glue on fabric, it will sort of, you know, really clench itself together with fabric. It doesn't have any trouble adhering to things like fabric because they can sort of melt together in a way. All right, so there we've got that one made. You can see we're off to a really good start. I love this look so far. This little sort of like puffy square. Can you see that in the camera? Is that a good angle where you can see the puffiness? Yeah, so I think that's looking really good. Let's choose another fabric to do again, I love this one, but we used blue the last time, so I think I'll wait on this. I think we'll go with something that's a little bit less blue and maybe a little bit more yellow. I love yellow, like our tablecloth here. I love yellow. I think it's a really cool color. So I'm gonna use this to make sort of a couple of different smaller triangles. And those are easy to cut because I can just use the edge of the fabric to make my triangles and get a really cool piece. And those are also decisions that you can make by looking at the fabric. Looking at the fabric, what's your favorite part of it? What would be a really cool part to add? For me, I love this sort of like set of different pinks and reds right here in the middle of the flower. So that's something that I wanted to try to emphasize. So now let's see, where will this go? Where should this go? What if it was like that? Or what if it was like that? I don't know. Let's see, how about up here on the shoulder? I think sort of like a little bit of an epaulette would be cool. How does that look? I think that looks cool. So I'm gonna glue this one down using my glue gun. Get that started there. And where's my stick? I use my stick to tamp it down. Very good. See, I just took a little bit of glue right along this line just to stick it down. It doesn't have to be a ton of glue. It doesn't have to be a lot of anything. You're just tapping it down. And so I'm going to do the other side now. And just put that into place. Don't do that. Okay, there we go. There we go. So see, I'm just using this stick and kind of rolling it over the sides to just lay it down in place and lay it flat. And you see, that works really well because the glue is right under the edge and that just sort of like helps make it lay down. I also really like that on this piece of fabric, there's this little scalloped edge that it came with. And I think that looks so cool with the texture of the sweater. So I'm really happy that was a bit of a good accident that happened. So you can see I'm just going along inside the edge to glue down. And then I'm using my stick to just roll across it and flatten it out. So see, look how cool that is. These sort of pinks are similar to the pinks in here, so they almost blend, but because they're completely different textures, they don't. And I think that's so cool. I love the way that looks. I'm really excited about that one. So let's figure out where we're gonna put our second triangle. Where would be good? Where would be good? Maybe it could intersect this, or maybe it could intersect like that. That's kind of similar though, so maybe I wanna put it somewhere else. Maybe I wanna put it over here, or over here. Oh yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I think that looks really cool. So that's where I'm gonna put it. What do you think? You like that? Okay, I'm gonna put it right there. Maybe I'll move it up just a little bit so it's right at the edge of the collar. All right, so here we go. We're doing our glue, going just along the inside, and then using our stick to keep it in place and just lightly tack it down. There, that first whole side is done. I got a little bit of glue, which is not a big deal and should actually come off once it's dry, you can peel it off. So let me go down the other side of this. I'm sorry that you can't see exactly what I'm doing right here, but I'm just going on the inside of where the fabric ends, just on the very inside of it, down from one corner to the other, so that I can just tack it in place with the glue. Because once the glue, like I said, once the glue sort of melds with the fabric, it will stay there. It's not going to go anywhere. You couldn't even really peel it off very easily because of the nature of the melted glue and then sort of the fabric, and they fuse together. So it makes hot glue a really great medium to use for this kind of project. So there, I've got 2 sides down. What do you think so far? It's looking pretty good, I think. So I still have to do this side. And so again, we just go on the inside of the edge, inside of that scalloped edge, and we're going right along the edge of it, and then using the stick to tamp it down and keep it in place. You can push it or you can roll it. You can do either one of those across there. I think either one works. There, that's looking pretty cool, I think. I love the way it looks. I think it's exciting. It's exciting to see how this sweater can be transformed. It's an already cool sweater, but you can sort of take it to another level and transform it into something other than a sweater and something other than a wearable garment, into a piece of art that you could wear this to an art opening when we start having them again. You could wear it on your Zoom calls. It would be something interesting for people on your Zoom calls to look at. Zoom calls for work or with your family. Or if you have a friend that's an artist, you could show off what you've made, and I think they'd be very impressed with something like this. I think it's really cool. Let's put a couple more things on here, and you can continue to work along just like I am, and we'll make a really fun project together. I think I'm gonna use this tapestry this time because I think it's gonna we've used a lot of sort of like contrasting colors, but they're a little bit all the same tone, whereas this is definitely a different tone and is going to add a whole other dimension to this. So we've only got 1 square with 3 triangles, so I'm going to do another square. But this time I'm going to make the square a little bit oblong. Does anyone know what oblong means? Making something oblong. It means making it so it's not quite even, so it's a little bit off. I'm going to do it just a little bit here at the top as well, just a tiny bit. Sort of throw off that viewing angle just a little bit. Because again, we're not making things perfect. We're not making things in any way where they have to be exact. We're making things interesting and creative. So let me think, where does this want to go? Where should this go? You know what, maybe it should go on the back. We haven't done anything on the back yet. And that was something maybe you didn't notice as much on the back of our example, is that there's a big, huge blob on the back with some other shapes along with it, which I think is really cool. And even one that goes over the shoulder. So you can see it's sort of like over the shoulder with a bump on each side, which makes a really interesting shape, I think. So let's do that. Let's put it on the back here. I think it could be cool like that. It kind of looks like a patch, which is really cool. And actually lines up with the line of the triangle on the front. And with the back of the sweater, the neckline, it lines up with that and the triangle. So look at that. How lucky did we get with that? That is some luck right there, my friends. Let me just pin that into place so I can keep it right where it is. And then we'll glue it down, just like we've been doing. Oh, I'm so excited that the ends met up like that. I'm just thrilled by that. I think that's so cool. And I love how this tapestry is really thick, so it looks like a really cool patch on this sweater. It looks like something, almost like an epaulette. It's so cool. I love it. I'm excited about that. All right, so let's glue this baby into place. Let me get a better look here. There we go. Let's see, I'm just going right along here. And I've got my stick to roll over the edge, to roll down the edge. Keep it in place. I'm gonna pull out my pins so they don't get glued in there. And that actually makes it easier to roll across the edge too. So you see, that's looking really cool. Look at that. I love how that looks. Can you see it? The line comes right around here and it meets this triangle and it goes back here to the shoulder. I think that looks really cool. I love it. All right, let's do the shoulder. Again, I'm just going along the edge that hasn't been glued yet. And I can, because this is a nice hefty piece, I can lift it up and just sort of do along the side here. I think that makes it a little bit easier than trying to go underneath. And I can lay it back down and then use my little roller to roll it in place and keep it in place. See, I'm just turning the little stick. I'm just turning it to sort of batten down those edges. See how that's looking really cool? It just goes right along there. I even like how it's sort of unraveling a little bit. I think that's kind of a nice touch. It's an interesting artistic touch, which I really enjoy. All right, let's do this other side and then we'll do the bottom. This is coming along really easy. This is not a difficult project to do. It's not super time consuming unless you want it to be. And you can be as complex or as simple as you'd like, really. That's the cool thing about making art too, is that it's however you decide to make it. There's no set plan that you have to follow. You can do what your instincts tell you. Make things instinctually. That's how artists work. They do a certain amount of planning, but really artists work on instincts and sort of use that creative zone to make decisions on the fly. There's not a lot of super planning that has to be done, especially with a project like this, because it's something that we can enjoy and have fun with. I know I'm having a good time. I hope you guys are. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. So again, just tamping down that edge. Oh, this is looking so cool. This edge, I love the way this edge meets this color. These colors, you can't see it on camera probably, but there's a little bit of purple inside this flower, and it sort of matches the blue and red that are in the sweater. It's really interesting how they play off of each other, and I think that's so cool. And I love this look. Look how it kind of looks like an epaulette or a patch. And I love how it looks on the front. I think that's so cool. This class and the others like it are made possible by a generous grant from the City of Pasadena Arts and Culture Commission. And we appreciate their support, and we appreciate your support. So we hope to see you again. We hope you'll enjoy this class and all the others that we make. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.